Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Times of Refreshing. I'm your host, Tonya Colley. Hope you're doing great, and I hope you're keeping safe. I want to give a big shout out to each and every one of you that follows and likes our page. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, for liking, and for your comment. Please don't stop doing that. I know it's been a while that we broadcasted it because we wanted to make Times of Refreshing better and bigger. We're trying to rebrand and relaunch Times of Refreshing. I assure you I'll keep you posted as things turns out. Sometime back in my community, there was a very terrible case of domestic violence and abuse that resulted in the death of the abused. There was a lot of talk about this, and there was a lot of uproar. And sure enough, it died down not long after that. And I remember myself and my team actually had a broadcast where we did mention that domestic violence and abuse should be an ongoing discussion, an everyday discussion, because it is important for us to bring awareness, so much so that we should be able to eradicate domestic violence and abuse against people. This month is the month where domestic violence and abuse are being given so much more awareness. October, as we know it, is a National Domestic Violence and Abuse Awareness Month. And I want to say a big thank you to every organization, to every person, every individual, everyone that comes together to speak against this, to raise a campaign against this monster that we must eradicate from our society. And I just feel I should also lend my own, you know, ideas and opinion to this particular situation. Do you know that statistics from the National Coalition of Domestic Abuse and Violence shows that 1 in 3 women are abused and 1 in about 9 men are abused? Yes, domestic violence and abuse is an equal opportunity, but it shows that more women than men are being abused. And domestic violence and abuse it can be physical, it can be emotional, it could be spiritual, it could also be sexual. But today I want us to look at it from another angle. The society at large records a lot of domestic violence and they talk about it. But I want to talk about domestic violence and abuse among pastors today. Yes, you heard me right. I want to talk about domestic violence and abuse amongst pastors. A lot of people think that this does not happen among the pastoral team. No, it does. The reason why we do not hear so much about it is because of so many reasons why the abuser and the abused keep quiet about this. A pastor can be abused, the wife can be abused. But today, let's look at the abuse and the pastor's wife. Many times, pastors' wives are abused and they bear it in silence because there are some things that are already in place that will not make them talk. So, what are some things that makes pastors' wives not talk about the fact that they are being abused? The number one thing I want to talk about today is the stigma of the society, the stigma it carries. There will be people that will come up and say, "Oh, why can't you just bear? Why can't you be patient? Why are you washing your dirty linens in the open?" The pastor's wife, or even the pastor, anyone being abused, is as human as every other person in the society. Another reasons why you do not hear about this is because the pastor's wife is thinking of the effect of this on the church. That when this comes out, she's going to be called names like the person that destroyed the church. Just because some people will look at it as she should be, even though it's at the detriment of her life. You must also consider the fact that the church is the place where the society comes to when they need help with things like domestic violence and abuse. So the pastor's wife is wondering, if we are the doctors treating others, how do we tell others that we are also sick? Meaning that if we are the one giving counsel concerning domestic abuse and violence, how then do we tell others that we're being abused? How do they believe in us? How do they believe in the gospel we talk about? And this keeps them quite silent. Also, the culture that has been in place for a long time, that is, women should be heard should be seen rather and not heard. Yes, the Bible says that the man is the head of the home, but the Bible also says that the man should love his wife as Christ loved the church. How did Christ love the church? He gave himself, his life for the church. So you see, when you abuse your wife, you are abusing yourself. That is just the simple truth. Because the Bible also says that two shall become one. So you have to look at all this and understand where the pastor's wife is coming from and the reason why most times they do not talk. A lot of times, pastors' wives are being judged quicker than any other member of the society. And they know that if they dare talk about this, then they are going to be judged. Let me tell you, I've attended so many pastors' wife conferences. And I remember in one of the conferences, people were asked to raise questions to talk about their concerns. A lot of people could not openly talk about this domestic violence abuse and abuse happening in their home. They wrote it down. And I remember that what some of them were told was that they should seek help with the superior person in the ministry, like the head pastor or the higher pastor over their husbands. And I heard women murmuring and saying, "We've done that, nothing has happened." And especially if the people in question are not a part of a church body, if it's a standalone church, then it's very difficult for that pastor's wife to be able to report to anybody. And most times, even when such reports are made, they are both called. The man is warned not to do it again, but that makes it even harder for the woman when she gets back, even to the home. Domestic violence among pastors is very real. Pastors' wives being abused is very real, but it is kept quiet. I want to encourage you, if you're a pastor's wife and you're being abused, either physically, emotionally, verbally, sexually, and other ways, there are things that you can do. So I want you to join me next time on Times of Refreshing, when we're going to be looking at the triggers and what to do if, as a pastor's wife, you are being abused. Thank you for staying tuned. Make sure you like, make sure you share. I want to hear your comments about this. And until next time on Times of Refreshing, when we're going to be talking about the triggers and what to do when you're being abused, I'm your host once again, Tonya Conley. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye.